Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
We want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana program. We have a wonderful program today, and we have several guests here that is going to provide great information, legal information that you would need, and behavioral information. So we want to talk a little bit about what the National Federation of the Blind Newsline is all about. It is a program, one of the many programs of the National Federation of the Blind. This particular free program allows blind citizens, those that are print challenged, those with certain forms of dyslexia, and even the deafblind now can utilize this free service. You can access over 460 newspapers from around the country, 70 different magazines, international newspapers and publications, breaking news, weather reports, Target and Walmart circulars, and a plethora of other information. We know that information is essential, and literacy is still fundamental. And we know that through these services that people that normally haven't had the opportunity to pick up a printed newspaper or magazine now has the opportunity to do this free. Y'all can read my daily newspapers, Wall Street Journals, my Chicago Times, Los Angeles Times. So there's a plethora of information that makes us more informed consumers. There's also job searches that we have, over 100,000 jobs that individuals can look at throughout the country. So Florence, you want to talk a little bit about the magazines?
Yes, sir. There are over 70 magazines. It's for people of every lifestyle. There's from AARP to WebMD, so there is a magazine for everyone. Now, also, I wanted to also let people know that you can access these services using your landline phone, your computer, a mobile phone, as well as a digital player from the Talking Book and Braille Library. So there, again, it's all about literacy, education, and information.
So we're going to take a short pause and come back with our guest. So stay tuned. You'll be entertained.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduce the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline. Experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read Jerusalem Post, too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Well, welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. We are we're happy to welcome our guest today, Miss Stephanie Butler, and you are from Tangram, Miss Butler?
I am the Director of Behavior at Tangram.
Okay, and Mr. Nick
Parker.
Parker, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Okay, and you're from Indiana Legal Services, correct?
Yes, I am. Indiana Legal Services is the largest not-for-profit law firm in the state of Indiana.
Well, welcome to the show, you both.
Thank you for having us.
So both of you. So Tangram, let's talk a little bit about Tangram, and you guys have worked together to bring about a new entity for the citizens of the state of Indiana?
We have. Tangram is a provider of Medicaid waiver services, which provides services for people with developmental disabilities. We also provide employment services and through vocational rehabilitation. We have a Tangram Business Resourcing Department, and kind of our mission is to get out there and provide services for people with disabilities and make awareness of what's going on and finding resources for them. And we have a partnership with Indiana Legal Services. And so that's how we work together.
Okay, Mr. Parker, you are with one of the largest legal services here in the state. You want to talk about what you guys offer for people with disabilities?
Absolutely. So Indiana Legal Services provides indigent legal relief for civil legal aid. So that means that if you meet our financial criteria and call our intake line, you can be set up with an attorney, a pro bono attorney for civil legal matters like family law, consumer protection. We do a lot of things in the realm of expungement of conviction records for people who are trying to find a job. The Plaid partnership started in 2016, and it's modeled after other medical legal partnerships, which are typically with hospital and health networks. We saw all of the good work that providers like Tangram were doing across the Indianapolis area, across the community, and we wanted to become a resource that they could refer their consumers to be provided that same civil legal assistance, but maybe more catered to what the provider was doing. So we provide assistance with benefits appeals. We provide the expungement relief for conviction and arrest records. We also provide information on other community resources that are out there for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and just in general to be a resource and something that these providers who already do so many good things for the community can also add to those services legal aid.
Okay, and Nick, now for people who aren't familiar with the legal aspects of civil, now if a person were looking for an attorney, let's say for a civil matter, what are the things that you actually would cover for people who don't know what civil actually covers?
Absolutely. So civil legal aid would, in short, be anything that's not criminal law, and then there are certain other restrictions. But so if you have an active criminal matter or something of that nature, it would be a criminal law matter. We wouldn't be able to assist. And then we do civil legal aid, but we do not do certain types of cases. For example, if it is a negligence or tort case, so if it's like a slip and fall of some kind or a workers' compensation claim, we can't take those. A lot of those are very resource intensive. We can refer you out to private attorneys, but we can't take those directly. But the things we do take would be some traditional family law cases, custody, visitation, child support, divorce. We take consumer cases, so if you've got a civil collection or you've been sued in small claims court or another court for a debt, we can help with that. We also help with benefit appeals of all levels. So if you've got a Social Security disability claim, that's at the appeal stage and active. And also if you have a state claim such as Medicaid or a Medicaid waiver, we can assist with those at certain stages. So there are certain things and criteria that need to be met, which is why we encourage anybody that thinks they might need assistance to submit a referral or to do an intake. With our intake line, we have intake professionals who can help screen the case and get you on the right track. So if we can't actually provide representation from an attorney, you can get an advice letter or you can get a list of resources for somebody who can help you.
Okay. Now let's say if a person has an active case somewhere else and they really couldn't afford it, but they did not know about your service, would they be able to, by any chance, get something transferred over to you?
So that can get a little bit tricky when you have somebody who had obtained a legal, like an attorney, even if it's a private attorney. Mm-hmm. It would depend on the situation. A lot of private attorneys might have a payment plan set up that a client can't get out of. So typically we do not take cases where somebody already has an attorney. But that's why we encourage you, if you want to talk to us first, to call our intake line when you have an issue. Sometimes a private attorney would be the best option for somebody just due to the amount of intakes we get every year and the amount of resources that we have. We sometimes do have to refer out. But if you don't have an attorney, it's a good step to call Indiana Legal Services first to see if you qualify for services.
Okay, and Stephanie, you got something you'd like to add to that?
I did. I was just, we're one of the many provider agencies that have a partnership and with Indiana Legal Services, and our particular partnership is called PLAD, and you'll have to remind us what that stands for.
It's providing legal assistance to individuals with disabilities. It's the PLAD partnership.
And so if you are a client of Tangram's or one of the other provider agencies, we have a referral system in place through Tangram, so they could contact us directly. We could help refer them to get with Nick directly.
Okay, now you say with people with disabilities. Have you had any success stories that you would like to maybe expound upon? For people with disabilities, cases that, say like you represent employment cases where people are denied employment?
I'm thinking of a good success story. I'd say one of my favorite success stories was actually a young man who had a conviction for a misunderstanding. He was deaf. He had been accused of assaulting a police officer when really he was just trying to get the attention of the officer so that he could sign to him. Unfortunately, this conviction was interfering with this young man's ability to get a job. We got the case referred to us and were able to get an expungement for him so that it was not appearing on a background check for him. And last I heard from him, he was employed. So I think that it was a success for him to move past that in his life and to have a clean record when he's applying for jobs. Another success story that always sticks out to me was somebody who'd been referred to the partnership because they didn't have anybody to help them with decision making. They couldn't find or become connected to family that they'd known that they had roughly 30 years prior, I believe. She couldn't find her father. We actually, through the help of a very active social worker, were able to get in touch with her family who had been looking for her for all this time. So that wasn't really a traditionally legal assistance that we provided, but it was kind of a service that she got reconnected with her family and they got her on the right track for some supports, some public benefits, and some more independent living resources. So I think that that was a really good success.
Okay. I think through Tangram, some of our biggest successes have been guardianship when family members want to have guardianship over their family member that has a significant disability and they aren't able to make decisions for themselves. It can be cost prohibitive for families to be able to access that because of all the court paperwork and the filing costs. It costs a lot to get guardianship over someone. And that has been probably the biggest thing that Nick has been able to help our clients with is to put on legally get the guardianship that the clients need. And so I think that's probably one of our biggest things that we referred is to help get guardianship.
Well, I do know that as our baby boom generation gets older, do you guys find that you're receiving more cases of individuals that have, as adults with disabilities, have been really tied to their provider, and the provider is no longer available or capable of providing? And what direction would that person that's dependent upon the provider that's no longer able to provide, are you guys getting much feed on that or information on that?
Absolutely. Are you familiar with the Medicaid waiver program at all?
Just slightly.
Okay. So just for anyone who doesn't really know, Medicaid waiver kind of waives the requirement that someone has gets institutional care. Before, Medicaid would just pay for services in an institution type setting. And like you said, with family members who are older and maybe can't help take care of their maybe adult children or people with disabilities can't provide that support, the Medicaid waiver, they can apply for this Medicaid waiver, which you have to have a disability to apply for it, but it provides that person to live in their own home, but you can bring in staff to work with that person and provide that support that maybe a family member that has aged and not able to do those care things. This Medicaid waiver will pay for staff to come in and help support that person. And other services, like my department is behavior services, and so we might be able to help staff or family members or things like that address behavioral issues. And so that's what the Medicaid waiver is. And so that's something Nick has helped some people when they're applying for this waiver. One of the priority reasons that you would get a waiver would be that you have a primary caregiver that is over the age of 80. And that would allow you to get the Medicaid waiver more quickly because you met one of those kind of emergency criterias.
Okay, well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from break. So stay tuned. We'll talk a little bit more about the Medicaid waiver and some of the other illegal issues dealing with people with disabilities.
I just graduated college as a blind student. How can I independently find job listings?
Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
It is a fantastic service.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. We have our guest here, Stephanie from Tangram and Nick from Indiana Legal Services. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we were talking a little bit about, the aging and some of the problems that we're running into with aging and dependents and caregivers. So, Nick, you had something you wanted to share.
Absolutely. So it is a very big issue having the baby boomer generation requiring legal services of their own. So I wanted to say that we have a senior law project at Indiana Legal Services that are able to provide certain civil legal aid to individuals who have reached age 65. So 65 or older, we have a special project for those individuals and their legal needs. But it is also an issue when a caregiver is becoming older. So like Stephanie said, there are certain special categories of Medicaid waiver. But also if an aging person as a caregiver is also the guardian of somebody or is helping somebody else with decision making, we try to provide services to get an alternate caregiver in place or a plan in place so that when somebody is no longer able to provide those kind of supports, we have a plan for the individual with a disability who might need that kind of assistance. So that's something that the Plaid Partnership takes very seriously, and those are the type of legal matters that the planning for the future that we find we're getting a lot more referrals for as the baby boomer generation continues to have their own legal needs and also become less able to take care of individuals with disabilities that do need that support.
Now, I know that there has to be a waiting list, or what kind of time span would it take for a person that initially contacts you that needs that type of service?
Absolutely. So we are operating on pretty full capacity. We've exceeded the goal for this year by 200%, and we're still got a little bit of December to go. So I am very excited about that. Unfortunately, because of the high demand, I'm not able to provide direct representation to everybody who applies, but if somebody would like to submit a referral to my partnership, they can get the referral form from the provider like Tangram. So I have the partnership with several providers in the community. I also accept some referrals from collaborating organizations that may have legal needs that they'd like to bring to my attention. My number one goal is that if I can't provide representation or help you, I don't want there to be a large waiting list. I want to point you in the right direction to still receive some services or support that you need. So for every person that is referred to my partnership, I try to at least provide them with resources or ideas of where they can go next if I'm not able to represent them directly.
I would say he's great at that. As a partner with Tangram, if he's not able to directly help our client with a need or a legal need, he'll tell us where to go. He'll say, well, why don't you try to contact this person? I mean, he's great at sending us to other resources if he isn't able to help us.
And I think having synergy between organizations in the community is really important because we're all working together. We all want the same goal, which is to help people. So I think that it's important that we recognize that there's all sorts of vital organizations, providers, caregivers that are providing for people with disabilities in the community, and I think that that's great. It's a great state to be in, Indiana.
Yeah, I also know that, you know, for instance, I had not known that this partnership existed. So how long has this partnership been in place?
We are wrapping up year number 2 in March. So we just started in 2016. I got trained with Indiana Legal Services. The partnership started accepting referrals in March of 2017.
Okay. Now, because, you know, it's all about getting the information out about awareness to the community. So do you two usually get together or separately to go to other organizations to speak and let other organizations know about this as well?
So I have 4 different providers that are currently in the partnership. So those 4 providers, like Stephanie is my contact person for Tangram, and then the 3 other providers have their own way of getting me the referrals. But for prospective providers from an organizational level, if a provider would like to discuss joining the Plaid partnership, I'm always willing to have that discussion, just getting more providers that are able to increase the network of referrals we can take.
Now, sometimes I've found that through experience that there's a lot of resources out there, a lot of agencies that, you know, with resources, they look good on paper, they look good on social media, but we find oftentimes they're not as resourceful as they indicate that they are. Do you run into that issue sometimes?
With organizations or?
Agencies, organizations, I imagine the ones that you partner with now, you've kind of, investigated them or, make sure that they are capable of providing the resources that they say they do?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to like government agencies, there's some frustration with timelines and timeframes and information and being on hold or being told to go to another department. So we try to cut through some of that red tape with Plaid. I think it's important to know that systems might be set up that are confusing, but that there's sometimes is a reason why some of these things have to be set up the way that they are. So trying to cut through that confusion is important for me. As an attorney, there's a lot of legal terminology and phrasing that can be confusing, and it can be intimidating for anybody. So I want to make sure that, especially for the clients that I'm serving, we are cutting through that red tape. We are talking through options. We're talking through realistic waiting times, expectations of what a victory would be with a legal case. I think that's very important to not be over-promising something that might not happen in the time frame that's being expected by somebody. And those can be tough conversations to have, especially if they're rules that you're not making yourself. So with Indiana Legal Services, our job is to educate and to let people know how the systems are working, and sometimes that means that we don't necessarily agree that it should take so long, or we don't necessarily feel that this is a system that is working the way that we would maybe design ourselves, but that our job is to still let individuals know this is what you're going to come up against and this is what to expect going forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also mentioned at the beginning of this show that a person should fill out an application for services. You also used the word indigent. So I know that also a lot of individuals who are disabled are on fixed incomes, but not necessarily indigent. So with that there, you don't necessarily take a case because of a person's disability, being disabled, but more so on the financial guidelines. Am I correct?
So Indiana Legal Services in general has financial guidelines. So for individuals that apply, they have to be under 125% of the federal poverty level. For the Plaid partnership, we team up with the providers. There's a little more leeway for somebody on a fixed income that might be over the traditional income amount for Indiana Legal Services. There are still guidelines, but we try to not let them be prohibitive. We understand the reality of the situation is you might be technically not indigent, but also technically not able to go hire a private attorney. So again, that factors into when we're talking about options for somebody. And it factors into other things like if we take court action, there can be fees that are associated with the court action. And if the person doesn't qualify for the court's fee waiver, we have to explain to them what they're going to be coming up against. But with Indiana Legal Services, when they get an attorney through our firm, there's never a charge for the attorney. So for me, I do the work pro bono. It's not going, they're not going to get a bill from me. But there might be other kinds of costs that I can't control, such as court costs or agency fees.
Well, that is very interesting and with great information. And we'll be right back to conclude our show.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
If anybody needs information about the Plaid Partnership or Indiana Legal Services to see if you qualify for services and would like to submit a referral, they can send me an email at nick.parker@ilsi.net. I'm also available at my direct line, which is 317-829-1919. However, if you are applying for services, you will need to get the referral form directly from a provider. And if you'd like to apply for Indiana Legal Services intake line, the number will be at the bottom of the screen.
If you are interested in finding out more information about the Medicaid waiver or what other services Tangram provides, feel free to give me a call at 317-968-9034. And my email is sbutler, and Butler is BUTTLER @thetangramway.org. Thank you.
And we just hope that you reach out to these great services and for people that are in need of the services. We want to thank you once again for coming out to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.